Hello, everybody. Welcome to the YGA Summit again. As Ayça mentioned, my name is Ömer, and I'm a YGA alumni. I've been accepted to YGA 12 years ago, and since then, I'm working voluntarily in every field. And now, today, I am the co-founder of Twin Science and Robotics, another YGA venture. And I'm honored and excited to host a wonderful and inspiring guest today, our mentor and role model, Professor Ger Graus. Professor Graus is YGA's dream partner, as well as Twin's advisory board member. He is Kidzania's first global educational director, founding CEO of Children's University, member of many prominent councils, and he was named to the Order of British Empire for his services to children. Please welcome Professor Ger Graus.
Hello, Ömer. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm just a little bit sad. I'm very excited to be with you. I'm a little bit sad, as you know, not to be live in Istanbul on the big stage, but 2022 will make that happen. I hope.
Hopefully, we are all waiting for that. Yeah, this year is a hybrid one, but next year, hopefully, we will meet all the participants physically in Istanbul.
That'd be amazing.
Well, so we have done many talks and we are talking weekly in our advisory board meetings, but this platform is very exciting. So I'm really, again, honored to host you in YGA Summit. I thought about 12 years ago, my first summit, how I entered YGA. I'm pretty sure that every participant is very exciting to listen to you today and be inspired from you. So if I may, we can start our talk, Professor.
Please.
And we have listened to your wonderful speeches so far, and in one of your talks you mentioned that the purpose of schooling was directly related to economy and industrial revolution today, and the astounding fact is it hasn't changed a bit. So how do you think modern education has to change in order to prepare young people for the future?
I'm glad you started with the easy question. Thank you for that. I think you're absolutely right. So the conclusion that education is a response to a supply, historically, to a supply and demand situation. Yeah. So when the industrial revolution, pre-industrial revolution, there was little need to educate the masses or to school the masses because life just went on and it's at its slow, localized pace. When mass industry started to occur, there was all of a sudden a need for mass employment and a skilling up so that those people could do the jobs. It's as simple as that. Schools then came about, and schools essentially prepared children for the world of work. And of course, in many cases, as we know historically, many of those children would enter the world of work whilst they were still children. My grandfather, which doesn't feel ever so long ago when you look at it like that, my grandfather left school when he was 14 and became a coal miner because that was the industry in the area where I grew up in the south of the Netherlands. And there is something a little bit strange what happened. So the Industrial Revolution then kind of moves into its second and third stages and changes quite dramatically. And we as people then apply Einstein's definition of insanity, which essentially is that we keep on doing the same thing, but we expect different results. Yeah? And if you look at the latest incarnation of the Industrial Revolution, which is entirely technologically driven through AI and much more, we've still got 25 children in a classroom. They're still facing the front. They're still in a building called school. We've still got 6 weeks in the summer. Incidentally, the 6 weeks holiday were brought about so that the children could help their parents on the farms with the harvest. I've asked lots of my 16-year-old daughter's friends who helps their parents in the summer with the harvest, and nobody does. We still cling on to that old way of doing it. Now, first and foremost, that is not necessarily wrong, because we mustn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But good things occurred, right? But we do have to look at what's changed, firstly, purely from an economic point of view. So what's changed is that the mass industries have disappeared by and large, and we see lots of startups, lots of individualized progress, lots of career changes that people have. So what we need to do is we need to personalize, individualize schooling and education. We need to also make the distinction between schooling and education. Schooling 5 days per week, 9 to 5, about 192 days per year. Education from the second you're born until the second you pass on. So we need to look at schooling and education now, I also think, in a wider sense. And that goes to the question, well, why go to school? Why do it in the first place? And I always return the serving the economic necessities, also with the issue of serving society and indeed serving self. How cool would it be if we could actually come to some measurement where we say we want to know how many 17-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 9-year-olds voluntarily go to museums, libraries, galleries, zoos, parks, participate online for themselves, the appreciation of the arts, rather than to serve an economic interest. Or how many volunteer, and of course you guys, you do, don't you, with YGA. So I think we need to look at the education of the future with all the technology and all the wonderful things that happen in terms of serving the individual, serving society and communities, and of course also serving the economy in a global way. Because that's the other thing, of course, that in my grandfather's time, nobody traveled. The world was a very big place. It is now a very small place. So, and then finally, what I would say is that we need to draw a very clear distinction between good tech and tech for good. I go to lots of shows and participate in many things around technology, and I see all the glitz and glamour of technology. And I think we spend too much time on the glitz and glamour and not enough on what good it can achieve, firstly. Secondly, we always need to bear in mind that, Ömer, we have that discussion, I'm very pleased to say almost weekly, is how do we reach everybody? Yeah, because there is a great danger that in the education and schooling of the future, that the gap between can and cannot, equaling the gap have not, will grow bigger. Because it's all very well talking about online learning, online teaching. There are schools in the United Kingdom where up to 35% of the children do not have internet access at home. Mm-hmm. There goes that one. And that is in the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. So baby's bathwater, step back, serve the individual, serve the society, serve the community, serve the economy, but look away from the pure return on investment principles and move to the return on involvement principles. We need a kinder, better world as well as a more prosperous one. And with that come responsibilities.
The technology part is very interesting, Professor, which I will be shortly coming to that point. I have a question about that. But how, you said that the educational system should serve the individual, serve the society, serve the economy, and we should look at the return on involvement. How are we going to do that? How are we going to reset the purpose of the education? What effort should we make to achieve this?
Well, I think there are a number of ways in which we can do this, and there's this song that goes, "Nobody said it was easy." I think it was by Coldplay at some point, right, many years ago, before your time. So firstly, changing systems is very difficult, right, because they are ingrained, they suit politics, they're part of that world. And I always find it quite amusing on that point that we look at a child's in England, for example, we look at a child's education from the age of 5 to the age of 18. So that's 13 years, okay? So that could be 2 or 3 different governments. Yeah, but why do we plan to a 5-year cycle? Why do we not plan to a 13-year cycle? And I think part of your answer has to be that we have to plan the schooling and education of children around the child. And unfortunately, over the years, most what we call educational decisions are actually economic decisions. Because educationally, you would not have schools with 2,000 children.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense because you don't know all of the kids. Well, if you don't know them all, how can you personalize their learning? Yeah, so that's just an example. And I think we also need to move away slowly, but it will happen. We need to recognize teachers for who they are and what they are. And we need to recognize their brilliance. At the moment, increasingly, teachers are told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, when to test it, what happens if the test results aren't good enough. So it's one of the issues where I slightly disagree with my old friend Sir Ken Robinson, where he said that that schools kill creativity in children. I don't think schools do. I think politicians do and politics do. I think schools are forced to do that. They have no choice. They're being blackmailed, for want of a better way of putting it, into
Wonderful
this.
explanation.
And I think that's where we are. And then I think the other thing we need to stop doing is stop treating it. Goes to the 13 versus 5 years. Stop treating the child as a parcel. They go to early years. I finished with them. I hand them to the primary school. I finish with them. I hand them to the secondary school. I finish with them. They go to college, and so I pass the parcel. And I often ask the question of secondary school head teachers, for example, and I'll say, when my daughter next summer, when she's done her GCSEs, how many secondary school head teachers write to the primary school head teachers where those children went and said, you might want to know how they've done in the exams, and thanks for your part of that achievement? Because, but we're back to this pass the parcel thing. So the first answer is we do need to focus more on the child. And then the other answer is, and this is where I think twin science comes in, what happens in school for a long time to come yet will always be prescribed, the national curriculum, right, or whatever we call the thing, and it will always be tested. But interestingly, when I ask children all over the world, why do you go to school? The answer I get far too often is, because I have to. I think that's a poor answer, right? And I think we need to make that answer better. How do we make that answer better? By connecting in school teaching with out of school learning. I think the 2 most important words in any lesson taught are the words for example. Because the for example express, I had a maths teacher, Meneer Jongstra, when I went to school, right? And he was a decent enough man, but I never understood why I did maths. And I remember a lesson where he stood there going, if A is 2 and B is 3, what is C? I don't even understand the language. How can I? And I'm not interested either, right? But had he then gone, for example, behind me is a book by, I think if I move that way, you can see it, is the autobiography of Johan Cruyff. Johan Cruyff used to be known as Pythagoras in boots because his football was played in triangles. If in the maths lesson he would have gone, for example, let's have a look how they play football at Amsterdam, and now you understand, right? So I think that is what out of school experiences, hands-on experiences can bring. They can bring the practice to the theory. They can bring the awe and wonder to the being taught. They can bring maker activities, right? The important bit for me about twin science is the maker bit. I can do this. I'm in charge. I can make mistakes. I can get it better. I can eventually get it right. Yeah, and I think the combination that twin is doing, as you know, Omar, that I'm a big fan of this, is to have an at the same time as you're doing tangible activities means a new form of hybrid learning where you begin to do this. And I think that's where we need to go. So I think, quite interestingly, to conclude my answer, is this: it also begs the question, who is the teacher? And it begs the question, what is the role of the new teacher? So I think the role of the teacher in the future is two things. Firstly, it is the purveyor of knowledge, just like now, right? But the teacher will also be the project manager of the learning. So there should be, in a school, no teacher should teach careers education. It should be against the law. Teachers have no experience of careers education because teachers have been to school as a child and later as a grown-up. But teachers are brilliant project managers. So what teachers should do is they should go, in careers education, I'm going to invite the CEO of Twin Science, who is a woman, to come and talk to all the girls in the school about what it's like to become a CEO of a startup company as a woman in a different country. And you know what? If Asude can't come in person, we can go straight online to Istanbul, and she can do every week what she does with me every week is sit in the sunshine while I sit in the snow, and she can talk to the kids, right? Yeah. So I think there will be many teachers, and I think the teachers will become lead teachers and project managers of the child, and the person in charge of the personalized learning experiences, because in small schools, teachers know their children.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think in order, and to finally say, one of the things we will need to do in the future is we need to get to know our children much better. We need to know not just their grade and their grade potential and their attendance, and whether they are gifted, talented, or have special educational needs, or whether they're naughty or whether they're well behaved, because that's all we know. Yeah. We need to know what their aptitudes are, whether they're good makers, whether they're good listeners, whether they're resilient, whether they are entrepreneurial, so that we can develop that whole person. Yeah. And technology will, of course, play its part in it, but it will not lead on it.
And what will be the technology? What should be the role of the technology in education, Professor? Because
the role of the technology is this. Technology is to modern day learning what the ballpoint pen was to modern day learning 60 years ago or whatever, right? It is well used, the best tool available, because I can make the learning better. I can add value. The environment is the third teacher. That includes the internet, of course. And I can take my children anywhere in an instant. I can go to the Galapagos Islands. I can go to the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. I can be at Ground Zero in New York, or I can put all the children in touch with old people in an old people's home where they keep them company and teach them how to use an iPad, whatever it is, right? So technology is the brilliant enabler used by brilliant project managers as teachers and by people who use it all the time. We shouldn't teach technology per se as a subject. Today, I'm going to teach you how to turn on an iPad. But why? Right? Plus the fact, actually, I think my daughter's school should pay my daughter and her friends to teach the younger children, because they're much better with technology than the teachers are. So there's a thing in there. So what we need, in a nutshell, is to be child-focused, is to keep it simple because we overcomplicate things, and to be courageous.
Yeah. So we looked from different perspective, Professor, from the policymakers' perspective, teachers' perspective, children's perspective, technology perspective. And I would like to ask one last question to you. So you are a partner of YGA, dream partner of YGA, and advisory board member of Twin. And and we are using the term double-winged. So from your perspective, why is being double-winged is so important, and how would you describe the climate and the role of Twin in that sense?
Well, I think I kind of sorry, I have a very visual way of thinking. So single winged means you don't go anywhere, because single winged means you just keep going around in circles. Yeah, you literally keep going around in circles. So if you want to go somewhere, you need two wings, right? Yeah. It's a simple thing, but it's really important to understand this. Without a heart, there is no purpose, and I would also say without a head, there is no purpose. So there is a balance to be had between the head and the heart. It is about return on involvement rather than return on investment. It is about business for good. It is about understanding. Let's use Twin as an example. And you and I and the others, we talk about this all the time. There's something quite brilliant about the concept that Twin, the better educationally Twin is, the more commercially viable it will be in the long term. Yeah. Why is, let me use the example, why is Lego so brilliant? Because it has got educationally better and better and better, and it's established a foundation. And there are many other examples. And that is where I see Twin sitting. So it's interesting, and I think you are very heavily influenced by YGA, which is why I love what you do, because the uniqueness of Twin is this. Under normal circumstances, you get a startup. The startup becomes as a business. The startup becomes commercially successful. And then eventually the founders of the startup say, I tell you what, we want to give something back. We'll set up a foundation and we'll give something back, right? That is the route for, I think, 99.9% of startups. Then Twin comes along and the people go, actually, we're an NGO. We're NGO people, really. We have the heart before we have the head. Yeah. Right? Whereas traditionally you have the head and the heart comes much later. So I think you are guided in the way a business should be guided in the future. And I want to raise an issue with this, which is very important. And I think people need to be warned about this. Double-wingedness is about values and principles, as well as being brilliant in terms of content and business development, etc. But it's about values and principles. And I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question, I think, because I don't want to put you on the spot. But Facebook has launched its Meta, I think, whatever it's going to be called now, right? And it's already got these adverts where I can touch the planets and I can share them with my family. So Facebook, you can see they're going to position themselves as an educational entity where people can come and learn. Yeah. I wouldn't let my child go near Facebook's learning if it was the last thing on earth. Why not? Because Facebook started with the head and still hasn't got a heart. Facebook lies. Yeah, and the values and principles of education are grounded in trust and honesty. How can I trust an organization like Facebook to tell the truth to my 16-year-old and her friends? I can't. Even if I want to, I can't. If I go to Twin, which will be one day the size of Facebook and much more important, if I go to Twin, I can trust them implicitly because I know that first and foremost, they want to do the right thing. I know that weekly we have conversations that are around what are we going to do with the children and the families and the schools who can't afford to buy our product? How can we still get that to them? I know how important that is to you, to Asuda, and to all the others at Twin. And I think that is the big difference. So the double-wingedness, literally without it, you don't get anywhere and you can't be trusted. No. And that is why that's so important. And that is why you are so important. And that is why YGA is so important. And I will do anything to see YGA and its principles, and of course Twin Connected and other organizations we work to see them flourish more and be able to influence more young people, because you are a credit to YGA and YGA is a credit to its founders and the country where it's from. So I'm privileged, right? And but I think that's a very important one. And I think that comparison with Facebook, and ask yourself that question constantly. because it's the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth in education, there is a difference between educating somebody and indoctrinating somebody. And the indoctrination is morally repulsive and wrong. And educating somebody is the best thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Professor. It was also a privilege to work with you as well. And also, our time is up, so we can talk this matter for hours, because it is very exciting and also very inspiring, and people needs to hear those aspects. But unfortunately, our time is up for today. And for
we can do part 2 in Istanbul in 2020.
Part 2 in Istanbul next year, exactly. And thank you very much for joining us today. And I again thank you on behalf of every participant, every YGA Summit participant and Dream partner. So hope to see you next year physically in Istanbul, Professor.
Thank you for having me, and I'll see you very soon, Ömer. Right?
See you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.